I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Pronouns, evil eyes, and citizenship tests. How great is Ramy all the way? We are going to be talking HULU'S RAMY Season 2, Episode 5, 3, Ariana Grande, and HULU'S RAMY Season 2, Episode 6, They. Getting into this right away as we're binge watching with all of you. We have all three of this theme panel on board. Our cultural liaison, Mina Wahab.
Hey guys.
We have our resident expert, Amir Yassir. What's up, Yas?
Hi, sweetheart.
And of course, we have our pastor extraordinaire, Nikki Bailey, amongst us as well.
Prepping for the Christian types.
That's right. Let's get that spiritual healing going as we break down both episodes. Of course, we will do them individually. First, we will begin with Season 2, Episode 5, Ariana Grande, but spelled with a 3. We actually get the Deena story arc, which seems to be something that is a trope of each season. This time, Deena goes through the evil eye, getting the scholarship. We're going to break it down as thus: the evil eye, yoga class, the car breaking down, the conversation with the tow truck driver. Before we get to that, what was everyone's overall opinions on this week's episode? Mina Wahab.
I feel like it keeps getting better and better in season 2. I really like this episode as well. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I completely related to the evil eye stuff as well. Super excited to get into that.
Amir, yes.
I was very triggered the whole Deena arc episode. From last season, I didn't really like the individual episodes, but I actually really liked Deena's arc. The tow truck driver sent me right over the edge. I was screaming in my room, so God knows what my parents think I was doing in here, but I was very upset and I was cussing at the TV, so I was not pleased.
Well, who doesn't get upset and cuss at the TV? Welcome to being black, Nikki Bailey.
Loved this episode, was very much looking forward to the Deena and the Maysa episodes. I knew that they were going to do that again this season, so I was very much looking forward to it. Deena is she's just awesome. I want to hang out with her. And also was so relating on the whole evil eye situation. Black folks have our own special version of all of that as well. So it was like, yup, that's what you need to do, girl. I was with it, yes.
This story arc, Deena is one of my favorite, of course. I love May, who plays Deena fantastically. This story arc felt like a little bit of fluff. However, it fit extremely well into the paradigm, which is a Middle Eastern culture, where there's this delicate balance of what is denoted as religion, and now you have superstition, and it crosses into the two, as we will cross into the episode. And let's begin discussing the concept of the evil eye. Mina, let's go with Mina first, because I feel like Mina is a proprietor of the evil eye. How many evil eyes do you have? And if you had to express it or explain the evil eye, how would you do so?
Oh, I have a lot of evil eye jewelry. I'm not wearing any right now because I don't think you guys are going to attack me. But I should have been extra cautious. So the evil eye is basically it's like kind of saying like, oh, this is bad juju. Like you want to protect yourself from bad energy. It's just like, you don't want to overly brag about any great accomplishments you have or like put it out there, especially because you might jinx it. So it's just this concept, like, don't overshare like good things in your life because people are secretly haters. They may jinx it. Even people who you think are closest to you may. And I really do buy into this, even though there's no like logic behind it per se. It is a superstition. I just buy into it because I feel like you should humble yourself. There's no need to like brag about how great you are. Like, I don't like to publicize a lot of opportunities I get because I do feel like I jinx them by doing that. I'd rather just like lay low.
Amir, Yas, are you a believer in the evil eye?
I'm a believer in the evil eye, but I go the opposite way. I post everything on Instagram and TikTok. I'm like fully out there. But the fact is, since I've been home, my mom's like, multiple glasses have broken because you're posting our house on TikTok. So there is like this evil eye thing goes quite deep. And I know a lot of religious people who will not do certain things on certain days because of superstition. So I think they did a good job, but I just wish that these white people are not going to be able to deal with this episode. So I just, all the white people watching Hulu, it is part of our culture, but it's a lot. So just FYI.
It is a lot. Amir, are you single? Looks like someone's been evil-eyed. Nikki.
So
I can't flick you off, Tehran. Anyways, go ahead, Nikki.
I felt the mental. Just to let you know, your parents told me to tell you that. Nikki.
I first of all, I take issue with the idea that you're calling it superstition, because for me, culturally, folk magic or all the whatever you want to call it, it's got deep roots, and it's so. It's a cultural thing that is shared among so many cultures. We might have different ways and different practices of doing things, but it's so kind of ubiquitous among so many cultures that, like, I'm not willing to go that it's superstition. I believe there might be something to some of that stuff. And the sentence, humble yourself before God humbles you, I was like, I heard my mom say that. Like, I heard, like, it was like Sister Jackie Bailey in my ear was like, you better humble yourself, because we don't have the same thing about bragging necessarily, but definitely about like humility, remembering your place, staying in your lane. And then the idea that somebody could work a root on you, we didn't call it the evil eye, but somebody will work a root on you. And then you have to do all kinds of protective things and cleansing things. And I wear protective jewelry, so yeah, I was here for all of it.
Well, it seems to be this clash of cultures where you have a very modern, progressive, quote unquote, Western civilization that deems everything a superstition. And then you have these very ancient old cultures, such as people in the Middle East tend to be, where these superstitions are so rooted into custom and culture that they just become fact. Where the evil eye is because someone may give you the evil eye, even the word ayn or ayn, which comes with the eye. It's just literally means eye. Ayn is the mirror. It's reflecting of yourself. It's something that's very cemented into the culture. And we see Deena come up against it in this episode as she boasts about getting the scholarship to the new law school she's attending, and her parents being extremely upset at this and her coming home. What were your thoughts on the confrontation between Deena and her parents, especially her mom, Nikki?
Oh, I really felt for Deena, because she wanted her family to be excited, and they were more concerned with, like, don't draw a negative attention to yourself. So I felt sad for her. I also completely understood where the parents were coming from.
Amir, Yas.
I think the issue with Middle Eastern parents, and I can only speak for mine, is there's always a disconnect with communication. So I think that there's always going to be a disconnect. And the way that she even Deena, we'll get to that later, but she does like kind of look down on her daughter in a way and doesn't like exalt her, like, even showing an ugly photo of her, like all of that stuff. It's like the conversation between, they're like having two different conversations in two different places. So I just think, unfortunately, there's going to be no middle ground until she gets married or something to bring them together. There's just a disconnect.
Mina, do you feel the same disconnect?
I don't know if I would say that there's a disconnect. I get what you're saying. I think it's more like there's like two different cultures at play here. And I think when you have two identities, you're Arab American, you're like constantly negotiating between those two identities, especially if you're not surrounded with like an influx of like Arab or Muslim friends. Your identity kind of gets like split into two in a weird way. And I just feel like for her, she's like, she holds on to certain parts of her identity, and then she's like, come on guys, like this is ridiculous, I just shared with my friends, with my Facebook friends. And her parents are just like saying this out of love, like, we don't want something bad to happen to you, like it's so ingrained in the culture, like don't brag because the iron is going to get you, it's going to attack you, you don't want to draw that unnecessary attention, like just, you don't even have it yet, it hasn't come to fruition, so don't post it, like at least wait a little bit if you're going to. So I totally get where the parents are coming from. I've dealt with that in my life as well.
And we even know customs like that in regards to people who are pregnant, waiting 3 months just to make sure. The concept of the evil eye is not uniquely Middle Eastern, but it is very rooted in Middle Eastern culture. And for parents to have the conversation, first of all, The fact that Deena didn't tell her parents she received the scholarship before posting it was also something that was a point of contention. Secondly, the concept of her telling everyone does invite the evil eye. Let's be very honest.
But does it though, Tehran?
Yes.
I think that but I agree with you in some ways, but I think that also you have to understand with Middle Eastern culture, there's a lot of silencing. And I think that if Rami had gotten the scholarship, they would have posted it, the mom would have posted it on her own Facebook.
Really? I have a question for you.
Double standard.
Have you ever made a wish on a birthday cake?
Yeah.
Have you made it out loud, or did you say it to yourself and blow out the candle?
No. I believe in superstition, but what I'm
all
talking
I'm
about
saying is,
you missed the point.
I got the point. You think that it was a double standard? It was a concept of it was because it was Deena. Being more protective of their daughter does not mean that they would be less distinctive about their son. I feel that they would do the exact same thing for Rami. Rami, who the mom prays for 10 times as opposed to 6 times she does rakat for rakatsuna for Rami 10 times because he needs it more. And I think we're going to get to that in episode 6. But for this one, we go to the yoga class. And in this yoga class, we start noticing a clash of cultures as Deena is very American, attending a yoga class. But at the same time, she starts balding.
I think it starts before that. Like when the girl next to her says, "Oh, congratulations." And then Deena's like, "Oh, wait a minute. People bringing it up?
Yes.
That's too much attention." And then when she goes bald, when the bald patch happens, yeah, like it got real for her when people started, mentioning it to her. And then with her hair falling out. So
Mina.
Yeah, I think a lot of times coincidences happen in life and you can't tell if something caused the other or whether it just happened. And I think that's the struggle, is like thinking, oh, maybe my parents were right. Maybe this is the evil eye, or maybe like shit just happens and they're not linked at all and one did not cause the other. I think, at this point, she just wants to be on the safe side because she feels like her world is going into a downward spiral. So she literally, we'll talk about this later, literally like seeks like advice from Uncle Naseem, whom she despises, just because this is really affecting her life right now. So she's like, I'd better like buy into this and be safe than not buy into this evil eye, culture at all.
Amir, Yas?
I think the whole yoga thing and like everyone congratulating her, I think it further confirmed what the parents were saying, which again, that can definitely happen to us where the narrative that we're trying to push up against, Deena's always been trying to be like, why do you treat Rami differently than me and all this stuff? And then when it catches up to her like this, it's probably very confronting. And I kind of felt for her. I feel like she was trying to gain a lot by moving forward, and this pushed her backwards a bit.
The coincidences seem to happen a lot more when Middle Eastern parents tell you something. So if you're warned by a Middle Eastern mom, just know whatever she says, no matter how improbable it is, will happen to you. If you go to the mall, a shark will eat you. There are no sharks at the mall until they say, just remember that I told you. That is the most evil eye of them all. As we do go to Uncle Naseem, and we have this conversation regarding the evil eye that Maysa said Uncle Naseem had and how he had to get over it. Amir, Yas, what did you think of that conversation between Uncle Naseem?
I like Uncle Naseem, and I think that characters like him who can be triggering in the beginning, you start to grow, you kind of love to hate. He made a really good point. He's like, listen, like, I'm not the person to give advice. Like, I'm just like living my life, doing my thing. And I think that with her, she just seems very, to me, and it's well played, is that she seems kind of dumb. She's not. Like, she pretends to not know what she's doing, but I think Naseem sees a lot of himself in her because he probably got underestimated like she is. And he's just kind of like, do your thing. Like, go do it. Like, I don't know. I'm here for Naseem. I don't know.
Nikki?
Well, I love anytime we get to see Uncle Naseem, but I also I felt like he took her seriously in a way that he hadn't before. Like now she's like, oh, something's happened, and and almost like maybe he was a little proud of her for coming to him because something serious that related to their cultural expression and their that was happening. So I thought he gave her great advice. Everybody needs to sometimes go see a slightly witchy woman to work out your stuff. So
Mina, were you a fan of Uncle Naseem's scene?
I don't know. I feel like it's hard because I can't like believe in something like the evil eye and then say that other things are like completely ridiculous, right? I feel like that makes me really hypocritical because then I'm judging someone else's way of doing things. But when I saw like Uncle Naseem's recommendation and how he was like sending her to some lady who ends up reading like Turkish coffee and like looking at the bottom of it and then using surahs in the Quran to ward off evil spirits, I'm like, what is going on right now? Like this feels really like not legit. I've never seen Islam being used in this way before. It feels like the second he says she takes cash only, I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, this is freaking hilarious.
Well, they tend to take cash only. However, I believe that in a lot of the Middle Eastern cultures, it's customary to have that balance. I'm sure Amir would be familiar
exchange of
with
energy. You have to have some sort of exchange of. Sorry.
Would be familiar with the coffee. Would be the coffee readings. That's something
I've done
very
that.
familiar. Not only have you done it, you've been advised to do this. This is something that they would push. Where, especially as in Persian culture, a lot of Persian culture is mysticism. If you notice, the customs will be things as if jumping over fire. There's nothing religious about that one currently, correct? So you get a lot of that tone. And Nikki's right is that everyone needs a bit of spiritual cleansing. So let's talk about that spiritual healer. And Mina, so you were disappointed in the surahs that were being read and the coffee because mixing religion and mysticism is often frowned upon. Nikki, how does religion look at that, and how would that work in Christianity?
It's super common in Christianity. If you look at Latinx Catholic folks, there's a syncretization of their Catholicism with their African traditional religion. So, and the same is true for Black Americans. We have, we go to church on Sunday and we all about the Jesus, but we also will do a smudging of the house to get rid of negative energy. We sweep our sweat or keep our footsteps swept to keep, to brush away negative energy from our homes. And there are all these things that like we don't think of as religion, but they, and we don't even really think of them as spirituality, but they're just sort of cultural truths, things like, like they're kind of old wives' tales, but they're really also true. Like, don't put your purse on the floor because your money will walk away. Like so. I have a friend who wrote a book called Root Work, and it's just all about all the little African Americanisms that are really drawn from African traditional religion that have maintained in our culture and that we have now combined with Christianity and probably in whatever other religious traditions we practice.
What would Christianity officially say about this, though?
Depending on the Christianity, because there are Christianities, just like there are many different kinds of forms of Islam. But most would say that there's something, like you doing that devil's work, or but hoodoo or folk magic, they're so ingrained that like there are things that we do that are considered hoodoo and folk magic that people don't realize are, like, referencing dead ancestors or whatever, like, so, things like that.
As long as we don't read Harry Potter. Amir, Yass, what were your thoughts?
I think it's really interesting what Nikki said too as well. Like when I came home, my parents came for 2 days and did prayers in the room to get, like I couldn't fall asleep. There's evil spirits, like we believe in that stuff. So I think that when it comes to this healing, yes, I was kind of triggered. Like I said, I mean, people are going to watch this and think like a lot of people are doing that. But I believe if you need it, it's much like an exorcism. It could be a spiritual cleansing. However you define these things, I think every religion has it. And, Christians, like Greek Coptic churches, they talk in tongues and they have, smoke. So I think there's a lot that happens. So I think taking a little judgment out of it and realizing Deena is on a spiritual path. And sometimes you got to crack some egg to make an omelet, honey. So
especially if you buy a new car. If you buy a new car, you got to put an egg behind the back tire.
There you go.
Here
That's
you're
another
driving
Persian
out.
thing.
We see it happens in the Middle East in general. We see a lot of the hair falling out, and then of course a lump under the breast. We go to this healer, to this seeker, and we get to the car. The first phone call we get is it is fibroadenoma, which is a common lump and most likely not cancerous. Well, clearly it's not if it is fibro, but that's the concept, right? So after the S-band and all of this, we get almost a clear bill of health, but the car breaks down. And now we find ourselves in the car breaking down with the light that we were told to fix, in the car, in the cab with the tow truck driver. A tow truck driver who's Mexican, but has a lot of things to say. Amir, you seem triggered. What were your thoughts?
First of all, I thought he was hot and they were gonna have sex. So that was I had a very wrong prediction. And I was like, please tell me she's not gonna have sex in hijab. But anyways, that's beyond the point. I was very triggered by him because I felt like he was doing what a lot of immigrant children do, is pretend to not be immigrants and to pretend to be white because of Trump and etc. So he turned on his own people. He also turned on her. And I think a lot of what he was saying is every stereotype rooted in some fact. Yes. Are there parts of Somalia that do clitorectomies? That is related. Yes. But is that every Muslim? Again, you're making these blanket statements. And I think that we also have to understand, like, not everyone's going to be woke. He's driving you in the car. And I love that she was like, drop me off right here and don't hurt my car. Like, I would do the same thing. You don't need to sit there for 45 minutes and put up with it. You can make a decision to get out of that, but you don't need to school everyone. And I didn't think she needed to take off her hijab and prove anything to him. That pissed me off.
Mina.
My anxiety was so bad when I was just even watching the scene of her getting into the car. I was like, lock your damn car. Like, lock your car right now. I thought something really bad was going to happen. I mean, she's a woman on the street by herself wearing a hijab at middle of the night. Like, come on, like, have some common sense. You're in an area that you're not familiar with. I really thought it was going to go a different way. And when she got stuck in her car, I'm like, that's my worst nightmare. And then she got in the car with the guy driving the tow truck in the front seat. I was really worried about that as well. And I was like, oh, maybe he seems harmless. And then I just felt like, oh, this is like all too common when you see like a minority, like a person from a minority group speaking out against their own community because they want to assimilate to a new culture and remove themselves from like this conception of the other. And I hate that. Like, I think that's so toxic. And I think it's like a disservice to what they're doing, like for their communities. I just think it's, I don't know, it left a bad taste in my mouth. And all of the, like, just to keep it shorter, I know I'm going over my time, but all of the misconceptions the truck driver was saying about Muslim women, it's stuff that I've heard throughout my entire life. So I didn't like that. I don't think wearing the hijab makes you oppressed. I think it's actually really empowering for a lot of women. And I think that's a huge misconception.
It can be extremely empowering. Of course, I'm thankful that Mina's not allowed to drive. Nikki.
You know, one of the things I find really interesting about this show is how relatable so much of it is, regardless of what culture you come from. I too was freaking out when she got in the car with that man, and I did not like that she took her head wrap off to show him anything. And I also, you know, it's true. There's this sort of, you know, whether you're an immigrant to this country or whether you're, you know, like me, you're just like if you're a person of color, if you're living as a marginalized person in this country, there's this pressure to assimilate, right? To be respectable in whatever way we're supposed to be. And I always find it really sad when you know, when someone sort of wants to deny their culture because they feel like they have to in order to assimilate to whatever this nonsense is we call here. So
Tehran, can I just say something really quick? Very quick. So on that subject of hijab, my mom wears like Hermes scarves, and someone called her a terrorist at Costco, and she turned around and said, terrorists love samples too. So I think Middle Eastern people sometimes need to not be. That's it. That's my 2 cents on that.
They need to not, I'm sorry, disengage at that.
I said they Middle Eastern people sometimes don't need to skip a beat. You don't need to take that scarf off to prove the bald spot. I think that's what I just wanted to importantly say.
I think that the taking of the scarf off was to prove this meltdown that she had, just being attacked constantly. We saw her take a lot of things in stride. Where you're from, you would have your clip cut. You would not be allowed to drive. You would never be a lawyer. And she says, yeah, I don't know New Jersey. I don't know how they are in South Jersey where you're from, but maybe they're like that there.
I will tell you. Sorry.
I'm so sorry, Nikki. Please, yes.
I'm sorry. I will tell you, North Jersey and South Jersey are completely different countries. I am from New Jersey, and it's true. I'm from South Jersey. We don't know what they be doing up north. So that was a real New Jersey moment.
That was a very New Jersey moment, and it did discuss the dichotomy. And of course, we see Deena coming out fine, but possibly learning a lesson and being at least internally humbled by God, because a lot of it could be caused by her own mental space that she was in. We go into a different mental space in episode 6, where we see Maysa's storyline. Maysa wants to be a citizen. She goes for the citizenship. We get the passenger report. Someone reported her on Lyft. We get the dream with RBG. So that's always a fun thing when RBG shows up. Maysa talks about her day. Now we have to go back and figure out who made the report. We meet Sophia. We go to the bar, and we learn the difference between honesty and being mean. Does Maysa ever learn her lesson? Let's talk about what we overall thought about HULU'S RAMY season 2 episode 6. Mina Wahab.
Wahab, by the way, like Bob. But anyway, I loved it. I thought it was really great as well. And I think this is such a common trend in Middle Eastern culture where you just say whatever you think. And it's such a weird dichotomy because I feel like within the community, we're taught to not be direct with our feelings, but then we say things that are so abrasive because we see it as love and honesty and truth. And it gets to a point of oversharing and criticism where you'll have Arab people who aren't even related to you, maybe distantly related to you, saying, oh, Habibi or Habibti, you need to lose weight. You've really packed on the pounds. And they have no right to say that, or they just say things. They give you unsolicited advice. And I think we saw that a lot in season 1 with Maysa driving Lyft and just saying these things that were really well intended, but clash with the American culture and the American way of communication, where Americans are not going to understand where she's coming from. They're just going to think she's extremely rude. But I totally get it because I understand how Arabs are, and I know that they're not bad intentioned. It's just a different way of communicating.
Amir, yes.
I think to second what Mina's saying, of course, there's not a bad intention, but the fact is the road to hell is paved with good intention. So I think that Middle Eastern people, they love to say, oh, you're fat, you're ugly, whatever. You arrive to a wedding, I don't like what you're wearing. Well, where the F am I going to go? I'm 2 hours away from home. So I think that it's learning how to respond is I think really important. And I think the mom is just really trying to navigate her own identity. And when you love yourself, you don't lash out and make comments about, if someone's wearing a dress, etc. So I just felt like when you're a Lyft driver, I've been a Lyft driver, you don't need to engage with everyone. You don't need to give your opinions on people, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Nikki, where are you with overall thoughts on this episode?
I love Maysa, but I felt bad for her, and I wanted to be whispering in her ear, no, do it this way, do it, I wanted. I will say that of the episodes thus far, this is the one that I have found the least to relate to. It was far less relatable to me. I didn't understand a lot of. I guess the challenge is as Deena is trying to explain this to the mom, and the mom's trying to explain. I just was like there's this missing each other that I'm assuming is a big part of being a second generation person from another country. How do you manage that sort of trying to speak not only across cultures but across generations and that seemed really hard. And not something that I had experience with. And I was just like, no, Deena, you need to explain it better. You're not explaining it right. Like I just very like wanted to shake Deena and whisper in Maysa's ear what she should be doing and how to make it better.
I don't know if it was specifically Maysa's fault. I think that a child of an
No.
immigrant would understand the frustration you have when you constantly are conflicted with the old generation thinking of the new generation thinking. I think that this was an amazing episode because it denoted that, but it also denoted the concept of Middle Eastern people or immigrants specifically being so focused on a system that they think is extremely strict and severe and fragile because that is their own experience in life. And so they adhere to that way, thinking that the citizenship would know about the lift rating is something that would be very real and cause a lot of angst for Middle Eastern parents who do go out of their way to be wary of the system. We see this in Maya's citizenship test, where now she's practicing for this test and preparing for it. What were your thoughts on her practice, perform procedure, Amir Yas?
So I've done this with all my aunts. I've done this with cousins. So I know that test. It is a hard test, and I better believe none of us knew some of those answers. It's hard. I was like, oh, love and liberty. That's the Constitution. Okay, that's the Declaration of Independence. It's like hard. So I feel for people that are coming from not only a language barrier, but also coming into a system. It's the U.S. government's confusing. And, so I really felt for her trying to study. And I love that she called it amendments. I thought that was really cute. And I'm surprised that Siri actually understood her. And I was like kind of here for Siri not being a racist once in her life. So I really appreciated that. And I thought that it was nice to see her trying really hard. And I like the RBG dream sequence too as well.
She did try very hard. Mina, what were your thoughts?
I think if an immigrant to a new country who's been living there, for over a decade needs to learn this test just to become a citizen, I think people who were born into this country need to learn this test as well. I think it's ridiculous that it would be this difficult to take a test like this when middle America and like most of Americans don't know the answers to these questions. A lot of adults have forgotten the answers to whatever happened in the Declaration of Independence and if it was signed in 1776 or if it was after. I think it's so ridiculous like how stringent these rules are and how you have to work extra hard just to be considered an American and still face all of this racism and discrimination when you've lived here for so long just trying to build a better future for your family. So yeah,
you better work, Mina. You better work, honey.
Well, just to play to that, however, that's something that only an American citizen would wonder. It's not easy to become a citizen of any country, and America actually has possibly, besides Canada, the most open policy, which is why we also have the most amount of immigrants by far, with no questions asked, a huge diaspora. So let's not forget that element as well. Nikki, what element should we not forget while we're taking this test?
I did not know that new citizens had to pledge to defend the country with arms. Like I was like, wait, I ain't pledged to have to do that. Why y'all got to? So I had never had any experience with anyone I know taking a citizen's exam. I was astonished at how much information they needed to know, and offended when you think about, what? I was just about to go off on a rant that we don't have time for. I'm gonna stop. But when you think about who has the right to vote in this country and how ignorance is actually a right that you are guaranteed, you can be stupid as fuck in this country and nobody cares. And then to make people from other countries who are trying to become citizens go through all of this is just insulting. And so I just had no idea. And I'm like, I had to stop myself again.
Well, considering that the TV show is TVMA mature, but we're not, I appreciate you and the language that you use. Moving on, because it seems to be something that's going to enrage people, and it should. It's a polarizing conversation. There is obviously the concept, however, about the arms thing is that all of us as American citizens are specifically pledged to fight for one country, and people who are becoming naturalized citizens, what they're saying is they're giving up their willingness to fight a war for another country for that of the United States. Just to put it in legal technical terms.
I understood what they were saying. That was some. Sorry,
I understand. It's
I have like a level of outrage that I don't.
Sometimes
honey, I'm right with you. My little room, you were little roommates up here on the screen. I'm with you, girl.
Yeah, I can see why this could be a very polarizing conversation. What was more polarizing, of course, was the concept that Maysa went over her day. We got every single ride, and we came to the conclusion of Sophia. What were your thoughts on Sophia, Amir, Yass?
Well, listen, quickly, I've worn a dress and a wig, and my Russian neighbor who's an immigrant was like, why are you dressed like a woman? And I was like, I'm a man in a woman's dress, and I ran off. So sometimes I think, and I love what Sophia said, because Sophia was like, they said, it's not my job to defend it, and I didn't report you. And I love, of course, it was the cisgendered white man that called the cops on, good old mama. It wasn't even Sophia. So I was like, of course he did. Of course the cisgendered white man called. So I just love that story that she was wrong. And they had a moment and it was going so well. But of course, that character, Rami's mom, is so damaged. It's never going to end on a happy note for her. So I wasn't surprised the cops came.
Nikki Bailey, without using any F-bombs, do you think you could express to us how it was to meet Sophia?
I have a lot of genderqueer and trans friends who deal with being misgendered all the time and have a level of patience and compassion for how to manage that with other people. And Sophia handled it beautifully. She put on her headphones and she said, I'd rather not talk. And again, it's one of those, like, the learning curve on gender politics is so steep that if you're already just trying to learn, you're learning the culture, you're learning the freaking history of this entire country, adding gender politics on top of that, like, that's a lot to have to absorb and understand. But she the point that Sophia made, if it hadn't affected your Lyft rating, you would never have come to apologize to me. I think that spoke volumes, but I also think that Maysa learned a little something more about how to be loving and how to be accepting, and how her own feelings about herself reflect in what she says to other people. And so I thought that was also a really beautiful learning moment, not just for Maysa, but for people who are watching who don't understand trans and queer identities.
Mina.
Yeah, I love everything Nikki just said. And I also think, like, if it's taken us this long to even be open to gay rights, and there's so many white people in this country who are against equal rights for gay men and women, I mean, trans is another level that people are so unfamiliar with, and it's been introduced more recently than the ideas and the desire and right for equality that gay people have asked for, that I think that it's going to take even longer for people to recognize that. And I think it's been something fought with a lot of hate. And I think, I'm not justifying the way Maysa acted at all, but if you look at this woman who comes from an entirely different culture where her identity is rooted in Islam, and her identity is rooted in this is haram and this is halal and this is okay and this is not okay, then I really think the way she handled it, like, to some degree, like, she must be given credit that she didn't act in hatred. She acted in ignorance, and ignorance is bad, but it's not like she had a terrible intention. And what I loved is that she did go out of her way to approach this person, maybe for the wrong reason, and maybe for a selfish desire to just have her rating fixed, but at least she got to know Sophia on a different level and really try to, like, understand them. So
But Mina, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't know if she really did understand her on another level, because the thing is, Sophia is not trans, is non-binary. So I don't know if, like, that was clear. I wish the writing would have reflected that more clearly, because it kept being like trans rights. Sophia's non-binary, not trans. So I think we need to make that quite clear.
Yeah, but
I wish that would have been more clear.
Yeah, and I think that that's totally right. That's also, like, a great point, is that I don't think, people understand that, you know, the whole concept of like being binary or non-binary, or if you identify as he, they, them, she, like she's like, what does they mean? And I think it's a
Right.
valid
And I
question.
get that.
I think
Valid.
a lot of us don't know what that means even the
Sure.
younger generation doesn't know that.
But I think it's not about understanding. Sometimes it's about just doing what someone wants for their identity. Because if we start dissecting why they and why
Yeah.
gender, then it gets complicated. I think
Yeah.
that she has the right. And again, Middle Eastern parents do that. But you have to be very clear. And I don't think, Mina was clear, the daughter Deena was clear with the mom. Just
Right.
say, like my parents say Oriental. I'm like, Oriental is for rugs, Asian is for people. Be very clear. Like she
Yeah.
wasn't being clear. She was giving a TED talk to her mom who doesn't speak good English. It's like,
Yeah.
don't go into gender politics. Like, be very specific. Like, mom, don't do it. And then the mom learned within a couple hours. She was
Right.
saying they. So it's doable. It's just you have to be more clear.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times, language can always be a barrier. Maysa brings that up. I know from Farsi that calling someone a he is very common because there is no gender in Farsi at all.
Mhm.
So there is no way to say he or she. So oftentimes everyone becomes he because it's the first way to do it. In Arabic, of course, there are genders, but even the gender assignment roles are very confusing. Which word is feminine, which word is masculine, and how you pronounce them each time. Language can be a barrier, and we see that with Maysa, and we see a conversation between Maysa and Deena, which has been building up, where there is a difference between honesty and being mean. And Deena attempts to explain this to her mother. What were your thoughts on that conversation, Nikki Bailey?
I thought that was a really beautiful moment, and it made me actually a little emotional, wishing I had had the opportunity uh, to as an adult express to my own mother, where I thought she could have been nicer. But it was also, I also think it was I think it was an opportunity for Mesa to sort of share with Deena that, like, I say these things because I think 10 times worse about myself, and I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to, and that I don't know any other way. This is just what's happening in my head. I thought it was such a beautiful, vulnerable moment between a mother and daughter that will lead to understanding, that will help their relationship in the future.
It was beautiful and vulnerable. Mina, do you agree?
Yeah, I do think it was. I think, Arab parents just, they don't understand. They don't, like, I talk to my mom all the time. I'm like, you can't say that. And she's like, I'm just being honest. Like, you need to understand that I'm being blunt and honest. And if I didn't love you, I would lie to you, but I'm honest. So I tell you the truth. And I'm like, there's a difference between being honest and oversharing and like sharing your every single thought and feeling and criticism with people that you don't need to do that with, like you don't need to do it with every single person. So I think Arabs really do need to understand boundaries. I think that's something that is just not inherent in the culture.
Or maybe they don't. It's a culture that's been around 5,000 years longer. Amir, your thought?
Yeah, like maybe we need to be less sensitive.
Maybe. I mean, I think a lot of times when people do say that, they're just trying to kind of make up for their bad behavior. A lot of comedians do it as well. They're very homophobic, very racist. It's all in comedy. So I don't prescribe to that BS. I don't believe that people are too sensitive. I think people are as sensitive as they are. So I think when she said that, I was like, I don't love that from the character, but I mean, it is what it is. But I just want to get to that last scene with the mom, with like what she said to Trump. I thought that was fabulous.
Well,
That's what I love.
clearly we see a lot of that confusion between honesty and meanness. I think it's always in the best intention. Then again, it's something that did not skip me as a generation. So, talking about the conversation to Trump, we have Maysa cursing Trump out in the middle of her citizenship pledge. Amir.
I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. It was empowering. And he looked so dopey, Agent Orange framed. I would turn the frame and then I would pledge of allegiance, but that's just me. I think that and I love that Deena connected her to Trump, and that was her wake up call to really make a change. It was like, you're behaving the same way, because a lot of Democrats talk hatefully about Republicans in the same hateful way that Trump does. And to not get political, but the fact is that is where I'm at.
Mina.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. I don't really have anything left to add. I think that there is a lot of hypocrisy there. I also don't understand the whole like white savior complex where like some Arabs will be like, yeah, what Trump is doing is great. And it's like, how do you vote against your own interest? People do it all the time.
Yeah. Nikki?
I loved that speech. I went back and wrote it down word for word so I could recite it and say it to myself in times of need.
No, good for you. I hope you recite it. Well, I just want to make sure that we realize that this isn't an attack on white America or Trump. This is just in relations to this show, which we will be watching more of as we're binge watching with all of you going into episodes 7 and 8 when we come back. Until then, where can people find you if you want to be found, Mina Wahab?
You guys can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Mina Makes Magic. And just for fun, the lesson of the day is Bismillah, and that means in the name of God. It's used in the context of prayer and in other contexts as well.
Amir Yas.
You can find me, as you said, Amir Yas _ on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And come with your trolley messages. I'm here for them.
Yeah, and the guy who told you to change your name to that is a genius, Nikki.
It was you.
Nikki, you can find me at Nikki Bailey _ on all the social medias.
And you're going to want to find her. And of course, I Am Tehran, literally at I Am Tehran all across the board. Find me hosting and paneling on a slew of other AfterBuzz after shows because all of your favorite TV shows are my favorite TV shows too. We love your comments. Keep them coming. If you're listening to us on iTunes, give us that 5 stars. We will be back as we're binge watching with all of you. Until then, bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.